So
Okay.
special considerations, I'll read this for you.
Okay.
Special considerations in evaluating children with moderate to severe learning disabilities, medical disorders, and mental health disorders.
Mm-hmm.
When to interpret results with caution and how to ensure that is done.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk a little bit about qualitative
Yeah.
information, and that's
Mm-hmm.
so important for certain evaluations to
Yeah.
include. Are there students that are, I made up this word,
Unavailable.
unevaluatable?
All right. So there's a different things. First of all, the reason for referral, it's very important because that is going to also kind of determine what type of evaluation you're going to be administering and what testing you will need for that. But at least personally, throughout the evaluation process, even though you have an idea of what are the specific tests and we know what are the needs and everything, when you start evaluating, sometimes you start seeing things that you need to shift or you need to change, your plan. And that's part of a comprehensive evaluation, and that's part of the qualitative portion of an evaluation. So let's say that maybe when you do the intake with the parents, you start receiving different feedback from the teachers, from the parents. You start administering the testing with a child, and maybe they never thought about anything that would be related to a learning disability, right? So maybe they were really focused on the hyperactivity, that they didn't want, the child was not motivated to do the work, the child couldn't pay attention. So everything was more related to kind of a behavioral or an inattentive aspect and not necessarily to a learning component. So sometimes for that, definitely you administer some academic achievement tests, but not necessarily all of the phonological awareness and like different testing that you do if you think that the child might have dyslexia, besides maybe ADHD. So along the way, you have an idea of the testing that you're going to administer, but when you start actually working with a child and actually doing the testing, then you may start like adding more or changing the test as well. Specifically, let's say for the unevaluatable kids, in terms that there are definitely some kids that are going to be more challenging for the evaluator to do the assessment. So it's more about, I would say, it's not that the student is unevaluatable, but it's more about the psychologist, if he is able to perform a good evaluation according to what the child needs. And that stands for this, for example, if I see that a child may have bipolar disorder, correct? So you may start doing the evaluation, but that wasn't part of the referral, that wasn't even part of the conversation, but you have some doubts about that, you can start doing the evaluation and then adding on another person to complete the evaluation that may also specialize in bipolar disorder, just for the example that you provided at the beginning. So definitely it depends on choosing the correct testing. And again, it's not just about the test, right? So I think that, at least from what I hear in the school district, it's more about testing. So testing is part of the evaluation, but you also need the behavioral observations. You need to understand the child, how the child is performing in different contexts. So you need that information as well. The observation of the child in the classroom is very important sometimes. Reviewing report cards and reviewing any other reports from any other professional is also as important. So you have to not only take into account the testing, the direct testing, but so many other components in order to fully understand and have a full picture of what's going on with a child. So I wouldn't just stick to a low IQ, let's say, and just stick to that number, because you also need to say, let's say that a child has a low IQ, right? But then he can really adapt well to different situations. He's good, he can solve problems, he can, go through life keeping up with all the adaptability, that he needs. That information sometimes, from my standpoint, is more important than the number of the IQ. So again, it's not just one source of information. Testing is important, but it's not the only portion of a full evaluation.
Correct. And when that's included, because I've seen the difference in these students that are considered unevaluatable, right? I'm going to coin that term. I'm going to trademark that. I like that. I've seen evaluation reports where I'm not even the parent and I'm offended because every single section is just low, 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 first percentile. That's the whole report. You produce a meaningless report, and we are in the business of changing lives of children, and you produce a meaningless report. That to me is just totally, totally unacceptable. And then I've seen other reports where, yes, that, you have to administer certain assessments in a certain way. It might yield that percentile, but that evaluator made it his or her point and purpose to get dynamic information in there, to do those observations, to fill in the gaps, to say, this is what he or she presented to me in this evaluation. However, in the classroom, given prompts or with his or her AAC device or with the teacher that he has a rapport with, he was able to do this and this and this that conflicts with the results of my report. Therefore, it must be interpreted with caution. We need to have a document, a report that shows a whole child and a whole human being, not just the sum of their weaknesses as perceived by our normative standards.
Correct. Yes.